Howdy, peeps. Your friendly neighborhood Monomachos here, speaking to you on the February, what is this, 17th edition of the Saturday Evening Post. A lot to talk about. As always, I keep on thinking I can let a week slide and take the day off, but doesn't work out that way, does it? Anyway, let's get right to it. The I'll just start with probably the worst news first, and that is what the Greek government did the other day. They legalized Parliament, the Voulier, legalized same-sex marriage, and many of you have commented on that. And in a you know, it's a shocker. I actually thought that they'd be smart enough, some of them, to take the offer that the Greek Church had made, the Holy Synod of Greece had made, and said, no, we're not going to do it, and it's going to be unanimous, and it was. And some of the more cynical ones would say, gosh, they'd say to their masters of Brussels, we really want to do this, but, these hillbillies in the church, they're tying our hands. But no, so I see nothing good coming out of this. Greece is the first Orthodox nation to do so. I hope it will be the last. It's a tragedy. It's an atrocity, and Greece will lose its the grace of God because of this. You could say, George, well, why don't you say that about America? Well, I have, although it's a different issue with America because the people did not vote for gay marriage, nor did the people's representatives in the houses of Congress vote for gay marriage. Gay marriage, like abortion, was foisted upon the American people, the American nation, by a judicial ruling. Okay, and that I think has stayed the hand of the Holy Spirit against the American people, because the American people, even though the American people participate in this terrible Moloch ritual, it wasn't done by their volition. They didn't clamor for it. In fact, quite the opposite. Same thing with gay marriage. Everywhere gay marriage came up for a vote, it failed, even in ultra liberal states like California. Okay, uh, with Greece, it's different. The Greek people, through their representatives, clamored for it. Uh, Maybe not all the Greek people, but their elected representatives did it, and they created it. And they created something that should have never seen the light of day. Uh, the nation of Greece will suffer for this. Of this, there can be no doubt. Okay, let's go now to the next thing. You can't cut the tuck. I've used that before. I picked that up from somebody, and I can't remember who, but Tucker Carlson did a bravura performance. He interviewed President Vladimir Putin a week ago Thursday, and it it was masterful. Just the fact that he got through and did it is uh, is a major feather in his cap. And this wasn't all. This shouldn't have been all that surprising. I mean, other journalists have interviewed Putin in the past. Megyn Kelly, George Stephanopoulos spring instantly to mind. Okay, he's a major world leader. You interview him. That's what you do. But because he's been demonized and viewed as the next Hitler, uh, he was kind of like something of a pariah, not to be interviewed at all, not even to be touched at all. Tucker did it, and God bless him for doing it. It probably wasn't the greatest interview on Tucker's part. He had some uh, things that he could have followed up with. Nothing springs to my mind right now. I had some notes here. He was chagrined when Putin called him out that at one time he had wanted to join the CIA, which is true. Tucker's father was also a member of the CIA. But anyway, regardless, we need to thank Tucker for having the courage to do it. He put a follow-up video in which he went through Moscow streets and grocery stores and showed that hey, Moscow is a beautiful city. It's the largest capital in Europe, and the streets are immaculate. The subway metro stations are works of art. The inflation rate is not like what it is in the United States, and the grocery shelves are full. So that's a interesting perspective that Americans are not getting. Okay, now speaking about cucking, the GOP did something very brave, and I'm very proud that they did it. They impeached Alejandro Mayorkas, the treasonous criminal who's in charge of the Department of Homeland Security. Uh, I'm glad they did it. I wish they'd done it earlier. I think they need to go after Merrick Garland now and ultimately President Joe Trump. Joe Trump, excuse me. Joe Biden, excuse me. No, never go after the Trump. Um, the point is, it's not like Republicans to just engage in this kind of partisan warfare. It's just not done. Let me put it this way: they don't do it to the extent and with the panache and the relish that the Democrats do. And the fact that they did it, I think, speaks well to them. And they comedian I can't remember who it was. They said that the Republicans have an aversion to victory because they don't know what to do now. You know, being of the upper class country club set, they feel that it's that fighting too hard in any sport is unseemly. It's just not what gentlemen do. Well, when you're talking about your country, you better fight like rabid dogs. And they did for once. They've done it in the past, by the way. They fought for like Justice Kavanaugh, and they fought for Justice Clarence Thomas back in '92, I think it was. So it can be done. Okay, now we go on to what I said about just war. You'll notice that I said something about just war. I put toward the end about ethnic cleansing. What I meant to say at the time was that the time for ethnically cleansing Palestine or have an exchange of populations would have been in 1948. In 1948, when the State of Israel was erected, and I'm not saying it should have been. I'm just historically just putting it out there that it was. The Jordan River should have been the dividing line. All Arabs should have gone to the east of the Jordan River, and all Jews should have gone to the west of the Jordan River, and be done with it. Now you're thinking, God, that's ethnic cleansing, and yes, it is ethnic cleansing, and it's not pleasant. But in 1948, the same thing happened on the subcontinent in what is now India and Pakistan. Uh, Tens of millions of Muslims and Hindus traded places, so that eventually there was India, which was mainly an abode for the Hindus, and Pakistan. There was also West Pakistan and East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh, for the Muslims. And it was not a very pleasant experience. And we look at horror on these types of things, but it did stabilize these nascent nations because one of the dirty secrets of nations, or ethne, as the Greeks like to say, and ethnos, is that it is homogeneous, or at least as homogeneous as possible. The idea of multicultural diversity within a nation is an oxymoron. It doesn't happen, and when it does happen, it doesn't last, as we're seeing right now in America. So that's all I want to say about that. I will make a few more comments below. addressing certain commentators. Okay, Adveevka has fallen, and this was some, according to some of the strategy sites I watch, Weeb Union, Military Summary, um, Berletic, New Atlas. This was even more of a significant loss to the Ukrainians than was the fall of Bakhmut over a year ago. So the Russians continue to fight these defensive battles, allow the Ukrainians to impale themselves on Russian spears for some idiotic reason, and they take and they continue to take more land, more square footage, and they're keeping on going. And I don't know what's going to stop them eventually. I mean, if the Ukrainians were smart, they would have come to terms last year or even the year before that. Uh, my recommendation to them, and they're not going to take it, would be to go all the way to the Dnieper River and try to set up defensive lines there. That would mean, of course, that everything east of the Dnieper River would be ceded to the Russians, but so be it. I mean, they asked for this. They could have been engaged in diplomacy, which they were not interested in doing it, or they were, but they let NATO talk them out of it. So that's what happens. Okay, so as I was preparing this, I found out late last night that Alexei Navalny, a major opponent of President Putin, died under mysterious circumstances in prison. In other words, just like Gonzalo Lira did in a Ukrainian jail, but nobody gave a crap about Gonzalo Lira. Now, a lot is being written about Navalny like he was the second coming of Jimmy Carter, and he was going to, make Russia great again. Nothing could be further from the truth. Navalny was how can I put this delicately? He was a racist. Okay, he really was, and his shtick was to you know consolidate Christian power in Russia, expel the Muslims. Uh, Along these lines, he trimmed his sails a little bit to be more amenable to the West, and as I have put out earlier today and in this particular piece, uh, there is a video of him actually being seeking bribes to foment a color revolution in Russia, in which he was going to be, in other words, he's a traitor. He was going to work for Newland in the State Department and consolidate power in Russia and then divide it up into 5 regions, which is what was Zbigniew Brzezinski's ultimate dream. And it's not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Not for the Russians, anyway. So the idea that he was some kind of a Gandhi-esque figure who's being martyred in a Russian prison is bogus. Besides that, he did have health issues. It just makes no sense that Putin wanted to off him. Even as a even as a political opponent, he was completely impotent. He just didn't have the the wherewithal or uh, the breadth of support to mount a campaign against Putin. In fact, in a general election, he'd probably come in fourth or fifth, uh, even behind the Communist Party, which is the second largest party in Russia. So anyway, so don't cry for Alexei Navalny. He was a traitor. Okay. Fannie Willis. Oh boy, what can I say about that? I mean, I'm getting tired of the sassy black woman shtick. Really am. She's an embarrassment. She's not smart. Uh, she's a degenerate, can we say? And there's nothing honorable about this woman or her boy toy lover. They were chosen for some silly reason to take down Trump in Fulton County, and it's just blowing up in their faces. And good. They don't need to. We don't need people like this. Okay, how not to defend a president. Okay, I'm not a fan of Noam Chomsky. He's always been a leftist intellectual, and I'm a man of the right, proudly so. However, he did come up with the concept of manufactured dissent, and what that means is that whenever you see dissent happening in the United States and in the West, it's usually manufactured. It's not real. Real dissent would be ethno-nationalism or looking for nationalized medicine, something to help the marginal, to really help the marginal. Instead, our elites manufacture dissent. They send out memos because they own all of the outlets, all the information outlets, and say, this is what we're going to be talking about today. Um, and and you can see they they literally follow the same script. Doesn't matter whether you're in Tucson, Arizona, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Dubuque, Iowa, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, or points in between. And literally, the talking heads on TV say the same words, so clearly they're reading from the same script. And that's what he meant by manufactured dissent. Excuse me, let me put this. And anyway, so um, let's just leave it there. We're being played. It's and it's just not you know just be aware of it. What you can do, I don't know. I don't know what we can do, but at least just be aware of it. Okay, got several responses here. First of all, I'd like to talk to David. David, we welcome your opinions. I welcome your service. I'm sure you've got a lot of tales to tell based on your service, and I think that's it. All speaks to you. I will say this: that I think maybe maybe your more realistic position about war being just is more realistic. Um, I I still think that at the end of the day there can be just military actions, and in fact I'm sure of it. That doesn't mean that there are not consequences, and that there are no sequelae, side effects for those who participate in uh, these actions. Uh, I I will say this: the fact that the suicide rate among veterans in the United States is staggering. I've heard anywhere from 10 to 22 per day, either suicides or attempted suicides, leads me to believe that you're correct. But it also leads me to believe that the actions that we engaged in recently are morally unjust. So, in other words, we're not fighting just wars. On the other hand, the Russians, they've lost maybe anywhere from 50 to 75,000 soldiers killed in the special military operation. They're fighting for their country. They really are. They're not fighting a war of conquest. They'll take parts of the Ukraine back that were always part of Russia, but that's okay. I mean, they the fact that we provoked Russia into an aggression taking by saying NATO is that we are going to put NATO into Ukraine was the ultimate red line. We wouldn't, I mean, if the Chinese put missiles in Tijuana or the Russians put missiles in Ottawa, I think we'd have something to say about that. And any war that we engaged under those circumstances would be justified. And I don't think we would have a lot of men having the PTSD and stuff that we are seeing. Uh, there are moral components to war. unfortunately. Having said that, war should be the last resort. And there's no reason to not engage in diplomacy. As Winston Churchill said, it's better to jaw than to war. Well, why weren't we jawing? We could have avoided all of this. Instead, now we provoke the Russians uh, into invading the Ukraine. We're widening the war in the Middle East by not reining in the Israelis, who are just going absolutely berserk. And we're actually talking about going to war in the Indo-Pacific to take back Taiwan. I've already discussed these three scenarios in the earlier piece that I did on just war. Where is the diplomacy here? Okay. Now I'm not speaking to you personally, David. I'm speaking broadly here to everybody. Think of this as a sequel. Okay, Hilber Nelson, thank you for your fine comment regarding the Church of Greece and how they're going to deal with same-sex marriage um, should it present itself, should an occasion present itself in Greece at some church in some city, Larissa, Heraklion, Nemea, wherever, Athens, Corinth. I hope you're right. I hope that the average Greek Orthodox priest, just says, nah, there's the door, go there. Or if he's more spiritually minded, more pastoral, I should say, well, yes, why don't we discuss this? We're going to talk about a catechism, as you said, and we're going to, talk about what it means to be an Orthodox Christian. Let's talk about it for a month or two, and then after you repent, then the issue will go away. You're not going to want to diddle your boy toy and have me put crowns on them. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not nearly as sanguine. I am very concerned that what will happen will be there will be some surreptitious ceremonies in some out of the way village or a suburb of Athens where there will be a gay marriage performed in an Orthodox church. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Okay, Brendan, excuse me. Thank you again for batting cleanup on the COVID thing and the mRNA. The guy, we need to pay you. You're doing magnificent research. Thank you. I just can't thank you enough. Finally, Nate, I want to say thank you for your commentary. You and I have been sparring for several years now, and I do appreciate your pushback. You said something though about uh, uh, that was very pro Biden, and honestly, at this point, I don't know how anybody could be pro Biden. I mean, the man is a walking embarrassment. I mean, I could put my tinfoil hat on here and say, well, maybe he's acting this way so that he can get out of being indicted and or having to negotiate with Putin or anything like that. And I guess a case could be made, but God, what a freaking embarrassment. Um, no, we're stuck with him. I mean, uh, I still don't believe that he legitimately won the election. I do believe he got 81 million ballots. I just don't believe he got 81 million votes. You're entitled to your opinion. If you think this guy is doing a bang up job, well, I think you're you're one of a dwindling minority. Anyway, um, still, thank you for all your, and I say this to all of our commentators, those that agree with us, those that don't. Thank you for everything you do and for reading, for contributing, and for commenting, and for watching. Ciao, Pax Vobiscum. Let's try to love one another.